Hey, if you want to start playing the U-bass, today's video is for you, and I also want to answer the eternal question, does bass guitar tuition work on the U-bass? I'll see you inside the video. Hey guys, it's James here. Today I want to do something a little bit different. I've grabbed out the Kala U-bass because we've had a ton of questions recently from our students over at eBassGuitar wondering, does bass guitar tuition work on the U-bass? And I'm going to answer that question once and for all. So you may be wondering, what is the U-bass? In really basic terms, the U-bass is a bass ukulele. But over the last 10 to 15 years, the instrument has been radically developing and has turned into this really cool instrument in its own right, which is super versatile, as I'm going to show you today. So what I'm going to do is give you 5 tips to help get you motoring with the U-bass today. Just before we hit the lesson content, I've got a quick favor to ask. If you enjoy this lesson, please can you hit the red subscribe button, which is somewhere around this video. What this means is we can start getting the eBassGuitar YouTube channel growing even more and get this content into the hands of more bass players like you. The more the channel grows, the more free content we can get out there. So it's a win-win for absolutely everybody. So please hit the red button, which is somewhere around this video. So the first tip I want to give you if you're starting out with the U-bass is treat the U-bass as if it's a bass guitar. The reality is this instrument here can do 95% of what the bass guitar can do. The only real limitation is it only has 16 frets rather than the usual 21 to 24, and some of the access to the 12th fret and beyond is a little bit limited, but frets 1 to 12 will work in exactly the same way. And what I've discovered since owning this instrument is everything that I can play on the bass guitar, I can play on the U-bass too, and it sounds super cool. I've even taken this on gigs and had compliments from people who are used to either hearing a double bass or an electric bass. So that's how powerful it is. So to demonstrate this, I want to take my favorite Stevie Wonder bass line and play it on the U-bass, and you'll hear how cool this sounds. So this is Do I Do. Now, tip number 2 is buy a U-bass with steel strings on it. Now, traditionally, U-basses had rubber strings, which would give it more of a double bass-like quality. But more recently, they've started putting steel strings on the U-basses. And now this gives it a ton more punch. Playing a U-bass with steel strings will make it much easier to switch to the bass guitar further down the line if that's what you want to do, because your fingers were used to playing on the steel strings and you would have built the calluses and the resistance in your fingertips. The steel strung U-bass also has a much punchier, versatile sound. So if you combine that with the Fishman preamp, which is in this particular Kala U-bass, you can get a ton of volume out of the instrument, which is really helpful if you're trying to drive along 10 ukuleles on top of you. Tip number 3 is to learn fingerstyle technique from the bass guitar and simply apply it to the ukulele. Now, there are a ton of other techniques that will work, such as using your thumb or a pick, but for me, this is the most versatile. But there's one slight tweak that you need to make here. What I suggest you do when you're playing on the A, the D, and the G string is anchor your thumb to the E string like so, and then stroke back and land in the string below. This is exactly the same as good fingerstyle technique on the electric bass. But here's the slight challenge with the U bass, is on a typical electric bass, you will have a pickup here that you can anchor your thumb on. But sadly, you don't have that on the U bass. What I find works best is just to hover my thumb maybe half an inch to an inch above the string and then strike back. Here's the critical thing. You want to stroke across the string and land in your thumb. Let me demonstrate. Now, some players find this a little bit tricky to start out with, but I found this the best way of approaching it. If you struggle with having your thumb hovering in mid-air, there are two things that you can try. The first one is anchoring off the end of the fretboard here. That can work, but what I find is it puts a slightly strange angle in my hand here, which is uncomfortable. Or the other thing that I know players do is take it to a luthier or a guitar builder and they can put a little bit of wood on there for you to anchor your thumb off. A little bit like the Fender thumb rests from the 60s and 70s. What I would really avoid is using the instrument as a place to anchor your thumb there, because the distance between the string and your thumb is just too far, and many players just end up plucking and striking into thin air like that, which can be so much more challenging. Tip number 4 is all about fretting hand technique, because if you learn good technique on the U bass, it is a wonderful gateway to good fretting hand technique on the electric bass guitar. Many students in the early phases of learning the bass guitar often struggle with one finger per fret technique and getting the stretch in their working. The brilliant thing about the U bass is the scale length is shorter, which in practice means that the frets are closer together. When the frets are closer together, it makes it much simpler to start developing the one finger per fret technique. So let me demonstrate what I would love you to start practicing straight away. I'd love you to put your first finger on the G at the 3rd fret on the E string, and then put down your second finger on the 4th fret, 3rd finger at the 5th fret, and then 4th finger at the 6th fret like that. And that is the one finger per fret technique. And once you've played a note, you want to hold it down. And then play the next note, hold it down, and play the next note, hold it down. And by the time you've finished, you've got all 4 notes down like that. So start off doing that on one string. And when you're comfortable, go on to the next string up on the A string. And then come back down in reverse. Once you've practiced out of time, you can put it in time with a drum machine and it will sound like this. And that is the foundational technique in both hands, which is going to set you up for success on the U bass. Tip number 5 is join the Bass Lab Plus membership over at eBassGuitar.com. Now, I mean this in a light-hearted, fun way, but there is a serious message behind it. So to go back to point 1, everything that you play on the electric bass will work on the U bass by and large. That means all electric bass instruction will work on the U bass really, really well. And over at eBassGuitar.com, I've put together a whole membership and a whole program designed for beginner to intermediate bass players. And we've already had a ton of players go through using the U bass. So I know firsthand that it works. And the great thing about the membership in the Bass Lab Plus is you will learn a ton of styles. Not just the styles that are synonymous with ukulele music, but you'll learn everything from rock to jazz, funk to soul, and everything in between. If you start on the U bass, it is a wonderful gateway to go to the electric bass if that's what you want to do. There are also many size advantages to this great instrument, particularly now you can amplify it really well using the Fishman preamp, which is in this instrument. So this U-bass may be the perfect gateway to start exploring the electric bass later down the line and see if being a bass player is for you. So if you'd like to explore the Bass Lab Plus membership, please head over to eBassGuitar.com. There's a completely free 14-day trial, so you can take it for a test drive and see if it's for you. I'll put a link in the description below so you know exactly where to go. I really hope that you've enjoyed this video and it's been useful. As you may have guessed, I'm a huge fan of this instrument and I only see it growing in popularity over time because it really, really, really works well and is a ton of fun to play. But anyway, I will see you next week on the eBassGuitar YouTube channel. Catch you soon.